Welcome to the English Pod community. I'm Blake, and in today's episode, we're going to sharpen your English listening and speaking skills with real-life stories and practical conversations. Listening to real experiences helps you understand natural speech patterns, and speaking about them improves your fluency. Think about this. Have you ever struggled to keep up with a fast English conversation? Have you ever wanted to sound more natural when telling a story in English? If so, this episode is for you. You'll hear real-life situations, useful phrases, and ways to express yourself clearly in advanced English. If you're new here, welcome. On this channel, we upload daily English practice with real stories and useful conversations to help you improve. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss a lesson. Let's get started. A few years ago, my friend Daniel had just moved to London for work. He was confident in his English, but one day he found himself in a tricky situation. He had ordered a coffee at a small cafe, but when the cashier handed him a drink, it wasn't what he expected. Daniel wanted to explain the mistake, but he hesitated. He wasn't sure how to say it politely. The cashier was busy, the line was long, and Daniel felt pressured. At that moment, he had two choices: stay silent and accept the wrong order, or find the right words to fix the situation. He took a deep breath and said, "Excuse me, I think there's been a mix-up. I actually ordered a cappuccino, but this looks like a latte." The cashier quickly apologized and replaced his drink. It was a small moment, but for Daniel, it was a breakthrough. He realized that knowing English wasn't just about vocabulary, it was about confidence. Speaking up, even in small situations, made a huge difference. Have you ever been in a situation like this? Maybe at a restaurant, a store, or while traveling? How did you handle it? A few years ago, my friend Daniel moved to London for work. He had been studying English for years and felt confident in his ability to communicate. But one day, he found himself in a situation that tested his skills in a way he didn't expect. One morning, Daniel stopped by a small cafe near his office to grab a coffee before work. The cafe was busy, with people rushing in and out, ordering drinks and chatting with friends. He stepped up to the counter and ordered a cappuccino. The cashier nodded, quickly punched in his order, and told him to wait by the side while the barista prepared his drink. A few minutes later, the barista called his name. Daniel walked over, picked up his cup, and took a sip. But something was wrong. It wasn't the cappuccino he had ordered. The texture was different, the taste was milder, and he realized they had given him a latte instead. He hesitated for a moment. The cafe was crowded, and the staff looked busy. He wasn't sure if he should say something or just take the drink and leave. In his home country, he wasn't used to speaking up in these situations. He worried that complaining might seem rude. But then he thought about it. He had paid for a cappuccino, and if he didn't say anything, he wouldn't get what he actually wanted. More importantly, this was an opportunity to practice English in a real-life setting. He took a deep breath, walked up to the counter, and said, "Excuse me, I think there's been a mistake. I ordered a cappuccino, but I think this is a latte." His voice was calm, and he made sure to sound polite. The barista, who had been rushing to make drinks, looked up and quickly checked the order. "Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Let me fix it for you." In less than a minute, Daniel had the right drink in his hand. This small moment gave him a huge confidence boost. He realized that knowing English wasn't just about memorizing words and grammar. It was about using language in real-life situations. The more he practiced speaking up, the more natural it became. After that day, he no longer hesitated to ask for what he needed, whether it was in a restaurant, a store, or even at work. Have you ever been in a similar situation where you had to speak up? Maybe you were at a restaurant and received the wrong meal, or perhaps you needed help while traveling. How did you handle it? Speaking confidently in English doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It's about being clear, polite, and making sure your message is understood. The more you practice, the easier it gets. Let's go a step further. Imagine you're in a new country and need to ask for directions. How would you approach a stranger and ask for help? Would you feel nervous? Would you hesitate because you weren't sure if your English was good enough? Many English learners feel this way, and I completely understand. That's why practicing these situations in your mind and speaking out loud can help you prepare for real conversations. Let me tell you about another experience that happened to my friend Maria when she visited the United States for the first time. Maria had been dreaming of visiting the United States for years. She had studied English in school, watched movies in English, and even practiced speaking with friends. But when she finally arrived in New York City, she realized that real-life conversations were very different from what she had learned in the classroom. On her second day in the city, Maria wanted to explore. She had a list of famous places she wanted to see: the Statue of Liberty, Times Square, Central Park. But first, she needed to get breakfast. She found a small cafe near her hotel and walked in. The place was cozy, filled with the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of people chatting. She felt excited, but also a little nervous. Maria looked at the menu board behind the counter. There were so many options: espresso, macchiato, cold brew, Americano. In her home country, ordering coffee was simple, but here, she wasn't sure what to get. She finally decided on a bagel and a black coffee. When it was her turn, she walked up to the counter and said, "Hi, I'd like one black coffee and a bagel, please." The cashier, a friendly woman in her 20s, smiled and asked, "Do you want cream or sugar in your coffee?" Maria froze for a second. She knew the words cream and sugar, but the way the cashier spoke was fast, and her accent was different from what Maria was used to. Instead of answering right away, Maria panicked and just nodded. The cashier assumed she wanted both, and within a minute, Maria had a coffee that was much sweeter than she had expected. She took a sip and realized it was not what she wanted, but she didn't know how to fix the situation. She sat down at a small table and thought about what had happened. She had understood some of what the cashier said, but she didn't react quickly enough. She realized that listening was just as important as speaking. If she wanted to improve, she needed to train her ears to understand different accents, speeds, and sentence structures. Maria decided to go back to the counter and try again. She took a deep breath and said, "Excuse me, I actually wanted my coffee black with no cream or sugar. Could I get a new one, please?" The cashier nodded, smiled, and said, "Oh, of course, no problem." Within a minute, Maria had the coffee she originally wanted. This small experience taught her an important lesson. It's okay to ask for clarification. It's okay to repeat yourself or ask someone to repeat what they said. Nobody expects you to understand everything perfectly the first time. What matters is that you stay calm and keep practicing. After breakfast, Maria decided to challenge herself even more. She planned to take the subway to Central Park, but she had never used a subway system before. She walked down the stairs into the station and saw people moving quickly, swiping their Metro cards and rushing to catch trains. She felt overwhelmed. She found a subway map on the wall, but the lines and station names were confusing. She wasn't sure which train to take. Instead of standing there feeling lost, she decided to ask someone for help. She saw a woman in a business suit checking her phone and said, "Excuse me, can you help me? I need to go to Central Park, but I don't know which train to take." The woman looked up and smiled. "Oh, sure. You need to take the Uptown train. Just follow the signs for the number 6 train and get off at 59th Street. Maria repeated, "Uptown train, number 6, 59th Street. She wanted to make sure she got it right. The woman nodded and said, "Yes, that's right." Maria thanked her and followed the signs. As she sat on the train, she realized something important. Speaking English in a real-world situation was different from studying English in a classroom. It wasn't just about memorizing words and grammar. It was about confidence, listening carefully, and reacting in the moment. The more she used English in real life, the more comfortable she felt. By the time she arrived at Central Park, she felt proud of herself. She had ordered her breakfast, fixed a mistake, asked for directions, and successfully navigated the subway, all in English. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. She was learning through experience, and that was the best way to improve. Now think about a time when you had to use English in real life. Maybe you were in a store, a restaurant, or traveling somewhere new. Did you feel nervous? Did you make a mistake? And most importantly, did you learn from it? Every mistake is a lesson. Every small conversation is practice. The more you put yourself in situations where you need to speak English, the better you'll get. Let's go even deeper. Imagine you're in a country where English is the main language, and you need to ask for help in a complicated situation. How would you handle it? What would you say? I'll share another story that shows why speaking clearly and confidently is so important, especially in unexpected situations. It's about my friend Jason and a time when he had to speak English in an emergency. A few years ago, my friend Jason, who had been living in London for a few months, had a pretty intense experience that really showed him the power of speaking confidently in English, even in stressful situations. Jason had been working as an intern at a marketing firm, and although his English was at a high level, he had never really faced a situation that made him feel completely out of his comfort zone. That was until one fateful evening when he found himself in an emergency situation far away from home. It started when Jason decided to go for a jog in one of London's famous parks, Hyde Park. It was late in the afternoon, the weather was cool, and he loved the fresh air. The park was relatively quiet, with just a few people scattered around, and Jason was enjoying his run. He was focused on his route and his pace when, suddenly, he twisted his ankle on an uneven part of the path. It wasn't just a small twist, it was painful. Jason stumbled, tried to catch himself, but ended up falling to the ground. At first, he thought it was just a minor injury. He tried to stand up, but his ankle throbbed with pain, and he realized that he couldn't walk without help. There were only a few people nearby, and none of them seemed to be paying attention. Jason felt a wave of panic. He was alone, in a foreign country, and wasn't sure what to do. He didn't want to make a scene, but he knew that sitting there, in pain, wouldn't solve anything. In this moment, Jason had to make a decision. He had to either stay silent and hope for the best, or ask for help. He remembered all the times in the past when he had hesitated to speak in English. Sometimes he felt self-conscious about making mistakes, or he wasn't sure if he'd be understood. But now was not the time for hesitation. He needed to act quickly. He decided to call out to someone. "Excuse me," he shouted, though his voice was shaky. A woman nearby, who had been walking her dog, turned around. "Are you okay?" she asked with concern in her voice. Jason could tell she was unsure of what had happened, and he didn't want to sound panicked. "I think I've twisted my ankle," he said. "Could you help me? I don't know what to do." The woman quickly walked over and kneeled beside him. "Don't worry, I'll call an ambulance for you." Jason nodded gratefully, relieved that she was there to help. As the woman was dialing, Jason realized that his English was holding up. Even in this stressful situation, he was speaking clearly, and the woman understood him right away. She even spoke to him in a way that was comforting, offering him reassurance as they waited for help. While waiting for the ambulance, Jason found himself thinking about how important it was to be able to communicate, especially in emergencies. Even though he hadn't been in the country for very long, his ability to speak up and ask for help had made a huge difference. He had been able to express himself clearly, and he didn't let his fear of speaking in English stop him from getting the assistance he needed. When the ambulance arrived, Jason had to explain his injury to the paramedics. He was in pain, but he made sure to describe what had happened. "I was running, and I twisted my ankle on an uneven part of the path. It hurts a lot when I try to stand." The paramedics listened carefully, asked him a few more questions, and then carefully helped him into the ambulance. The whole experience was stressful, but it was also a turning point for Jason. He realized that when it comes to communication, clarity is key. You don't need to be perfect at English, but you do need to be able to explain what's going on, ask for help when you need it, and make sure that people understand you. Later that evening, as Jason rested in his apartment with his foot elevated, he thought about the lessons he had learned. First, it was important to stay calm and not panic, especially when you're in an unfamiliar place. Second, speaking up and asking for help is never a weakness. In fact, it's a sign of strength. He realized that every time he spoke in English, whether it was asking for help in an emergency, ordering food at a restaurant, or making small talk with a colleague, he was getting better and better at navigating the language. Think about this. When was the last time you had to speak in English in a high-pressure situation? Maybe you had to give a presentation at work, or you were at a doctor's appointment and had to explain your symptoms. These kinds of situations are common, and the more you practice in these real-life settings, the easier it becomes. Even if your English isn't perfect, the goal is to communicate effectively, and that's what Jason learned in his emergency. If you're ever in a similar situation where you need to ask for help, think about the phrases you can use to stay calm and clear. For example, "Excuse me, could you help me? I'm not feeling well. I think I've hurt myself. Can you please call an ambulance? I don't understand what's happening. Could you explain it to me, please?" These are all simple phrases, but they're powerful. They help you communicate in a way that others will understand, and they can make a big difference in how quickly you get the help you need. Now, let's shift gears and think about how these real-life situations can also help you improve your writing. Just like speaking, writing is all about clear communication. When you write about your own experiences, whether it's an email to a friend, a report at work, or even a social media post, your goal is the same: to make sure your reader understands what you're saying. In fact, writing about real-life situations can be a great way to practice both your speaking and writing skills. After all, when you speak, you're often telling a story, and writing about those stories helps reinforce the vocabulary and sentence structures you've learned. You can start by writing down simple things that happen in your day. For example, you might write, "Today, I went to the park and twisted my ankle. I couldn't walk, so I asked for help. A kind woman called an ambulance for me, and the paramedics were very helpful. I felt nervous at first, but I was able to explain what happened, and everything turned out okay." Writing this down might feel easy at first, but as you continue to practice, you'll get better at describing situations clearly and with confidence. This is a great way to build both your speaking and writing skills in a way that feels real and relevant. So, think about your own experiences. What's a situation where you had to speak English? How did you feel, and how did you handle it? Would you have said something differently, or would you have added more detail? Writing about these experiences will help you become more comfortable with English and give you more confidence in your language skills. Remember, the key is practice. Every real-life situation is an opportunity to improve, whether you're speaking or writing. And just like Jason, the more you speak up, the easier it becomes. Every conversation is a chance to get better. After that incident in the park, Jason realized something important. English wasn't just about grammar and vocabulary. It was about confidence, clarity, and being able to express yourself in real situations. That experience completely changed the way he approached learning the language. Before that day, he had always focused on studying English through textbooks and grammar exercises. He had spent hours memorizing words and practicing sentence structures, but he had never truly tested his ability to use English in an urgent, high-pressure moment. That night, as he lay in bed with his injured ankle elevated, Jason kept replaying the situation in his mind. He was proud of himself for managing to ask for help, but he also noticed things he could have done better. For example, when the paramedics arrived, they had asked him some specific questions about his pain, like, on a scale from 1 to 10, how bad is the pain? Does it hurt more when you put weight on it? Have you had any injuries like this? Before, Jason had been able to answer, but he realized he had hesitated in some places, searching for the right words. He found himself wishing he had learned more about describing pain and medical issues in English. That's when it hit him. Language learning isn't just about studying random words. It's about preparing for real-life situations that you might actually face. The next day, Jason decided to take a new approach to improving his English. Instead of only focusing on general vocabulary, he started thinking about the types of situations he might experience in daily life. He made a list, ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions in a new city, explaining symptoms to a doctor, booking an appointment over the phone, describing a problem to customer service, making small talk with colleagues at work by focusing on these practical scenarios. Jason realized he could prepare himself to handle anything with confidence. He decided to start practicing by writing down imaginary conversations for each of these situations. For example, for a restaurant scenario, he wrote, Customer: Hi, I'd like to order the grilled salmon, please. Waiter: Sure. Would you like any sides with that? Customer: Yes, can I get a side of mashed potatoes and a green salad? Waiter: Of course. And would you like something to drink? Customer: I'll have a glass of water, please. By writing these conversations, Jason was training his brain to think in English. He wasn't just memorizing words, he was practicing how to use them in real life. But he didn't stop there. Jason knew that speaking was just as important as writing, so he decided to take his practice a step further. He started reading his written conversations out loud. He would stand in front of a mirror and act out both sides of the dialogue, pretending he was actually in the situation. At first, it felt a little silly, but he quickly noticed that his confidence was growing. He was getting used to the rhythm of English, the pronunciation of words, and the natural flow of conversation. Jason's journey to becoming confident in English didn't stop there. In fact, his experience in Hyde Park was only the beginning. As the weeks went by, he started to push himself more and more, looking for every opportunity to practice English in real situations. He knew that if he wanted to improve, he had to put himself in situations where he was forced to speak and listen actively. One day, while scrolling through social media, he saw an advertisement for a local language exchange event. The idea was simple. English learners and native speakers would meet at a cafe, sit in small groups, and take turns practicing different languages. Jason hesitated at first. He wasn't sure if he was ready to speak in front of strangers, but he reminded himself of his goal, to become fluent and confident in English. So he signed up. The event took place at a cozy coffee shop in the city center. When Jason arrived, he saw groups of people chatting enthusiastically. Some were speaking English, while others were practicing Spanish, French, and even Japanese. A woman at the entrance handed him a name tag and guided him to a table where 3 other people were sitting. "Hey there, I'm Daniel," said a friendly-looking guy with a big smile. "This is Emma, and that's Alex. Welcome." Jason took a deep breath and smiled back. "Hi, I'm Jason. Nice to meet you all." The conversation started with introductions, but soon they were discussing everything from travel to food to funny cultural misunderstandings. Jason noticed something interesting. At first, he was a little nervous, but as he kept speaking, he started to relax. The more he listened and responded, the easier it became. At one point, Daniel asked him, "So, Jason, what's the most interesting place you've ever visited?" Jason thought for a moment and then started telling a story about a trip he had taken to Thailand. He described the beautiful beaches, the street food, and an amusing incident where he accidentally ordered the spiciest dish on the menu without realizing it. "I took one bite," Jason said, laughing, "and immediately my mouth was on fire. I was sweating, my eyes were watering, and the waiter just looked at me and said, 'Too spicy?'" Everyone at the table laughed. Jason realized something important at that moment. People weren't judging his English. They were just enjoying the conversation. Even if he made small mistakes, it didn't matter. What mattered was that he was able to communicate, to tell a story, to share an experience. After the event, Jason felt a new kind of motivation. He saw how much he had improved just by having real conversations. He decided to keep up the momentum by doing 3 things every day: listening to native speakers. Instead of just studying English from books, Jason started listening to podcasts, watching interviews, and even following English-speaking YouTubers. Speaking out loud. Every morning, he would talk to himself in English, describing his plans for the day, practicing different phrases, and even imitating native speakers to improve his pronunciation, writing about his day. At night, he would write a short journal entry in English, describing what happened during the day. This helped him organize his thoughts and learn new vocabulary. A few weeks later, Jason faced another big challenge: his first job interview in English. He had been applying for jobs in international companies, and one day, he got an email inviting him for an interview. His excitement quickly turned into nervousness. What if he didn't understand the interviewer's questions? What if he forgot his words? But instead of panicking, Jason prepared. He looked up common job interview questions and practiced answering them out loud. He even recorded himself to check his pronunciation and fluency. On the day of the interview, he dressed professionally, took a deep breath, and reminded himself, "I can do this." The interviewer, a woman named Sarah, smiled as she greeted him. "So, Jason, tell me a little about yourself." Jason had practiced this answer many times. "Sure, my name is Jason, and I have a background in marketing. I love working with creative ideas, and I recently managed a social media campaign that increased engagement by 40%. The interview continued smoothly. At one point, Sarah asked him, "Can you tell me about a time when you faced a challenge at work and how you handled it?" Jason thought for a moment, then told a story about a project that had unexpected problems and how he and his team had worked together to solve them. By the end of the interview, Jason felt proud of himself. He had spoken clearly and confidently, and most importantly, he had shown that he could communicate in English naturally. A few days later, he received an email. "Congratulations! We'd love to offer you the position." Jason couldn't believe it. All his hard work, practicing conversations, pushing himself to speak in real situations, and staying consistent had paid off. But his journey didn't stop there. He knew that learning a language is a continuous process. He kept finding new ways to challenge himself, whether it was by joining more language exchange events, making international friends, or even volunteering to give presentations at work. One day, Jason's younger cousin Mia called him. She was struggling with her English class and felt nervous about speaking. "I always get stuck," she said. "I'm afraid of making mistakes." Jason smiled and said, "Let me tell you a story." And he shared everything he had learned, from the day he struggled to ask for help in Hyde Park, to his first real conversation at the language exchange, to his successful job interview. Mia listened carefully, then laughed. "So you're saying I just have to go out there and start speaking?" "Exactly," Jason said. "The more you speak, the better you get." From that day on, Mia followed Jason's advice. She practiced speaking every day, joined a language, group, and even started watching English movies without subtitles. Just a few months later, she called Jason again. "I had a conversation with a native English speaker today," she said excitedly. "And guess what? I didn't freeze up. I just spoke naturally." Jason grinned. "That's amazing. See? You're already improving." The lesson here is simple. Language learning isn't just about studying, it's about using the language in real life, making mistakes, learning from them, and pushing yourself to improve. So if you're listening to this podcast and wondering how to get better at English, remember Jason's journey. Start speaking today, no matter how nervous you feel. Practice real-life conversations, listen to native speakers, and most importantly, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Every mistake is a step toward fluency. Now, let me ask you, what's one real-life situation where you've had to use English? Was it a job interview, a trip abroad, or maybe just ordering food at a restaurant? Think about it for a moment. How did you feel? Did you struggle, or did it go smoothly? And if you're still feeling nervous about speaking English, don't worry. The key is to keep practicing, just like Jason did. With time, effort, and a little bit of courage, you'll find that English becomes easier and more natural every day. After Jason encouraged Mia to practice speaking English every day, she started to build confidence little by little. At first, she was nervous. She would practice sentences in her head before speaking. Sometimes she would hesitate, worried that she might use the wrong word or pronounce something incorrectly. But she kept reminding herself of what Jason had told her. Mistakes are a natural part of learning. One evening, Mia decided to challenge herself. She went to a small cafe in her city that was popular with tourists. She sat at a table near the counter, took a deep breath, and decided that no matter what, she would order in English. When the waiter came over, he smiled and said, "Hello, what can I get for you today?" Mia felt her heart race, but she smiled back and said, "Hi, I'd like a cappuccino, please." The waiter nodded. "Sure. Would you like it with regular milk or oat milk?" For a second, Mia panicked. She hadn't expected that question. She wasn't sure how to answer quickly. But instead of freezing up, she asked, "What do you recommend?" The waiter said, "Oat milk is a little sweeter, but regular milk is more traditional." Mia nodded and said, "I'll try oat milk then." "Thank you." The waiter smiled. "Great choice. I'll bring it right over." As he walked away, Mia felt a rush of excitement. It was such a simple interaction, but she had done it. She had spoken English with confidence. She hadn't memorized a script. She had responded naturally, and she had even asked a question. That small success made her feel more motivated. She started to challenge herself every day. She would go to places where she had to use English, restaurants, bookstores, even museums where she could ask guides questions. One day, she walked into a bookstore and saw a group of people gathered around a small reading corner. A sign nearby said, "English Book Club. Join the discussion." Mia hesitated. Should she join? What if she couldn't keep up? What if she didn't understand the book they were talking about? But then she thought about Jason's advice. The only way to improve is to put yourself in real situations. So, she took a deep breath and walked toward the group. A woman with glasses smiled at her and said, "Hi, are you here for the book club?" Mia nodded. "Yes. Is it okay if I join?" "Of course. I'm Sarah. Welcome." Mia sat down as the discussion began. The book they were talking about was a novel she had never read before, but she listened carefully. At first, she was quiet, just trying to understand the conversation. But then, one of the members, a man named David, turned to her and asked, "What do you think about the main character's decision? Was it the right choice?" Mia hesitated. She hadn't read the book, but she had picked up on the main ideas from their discussion. She decided to answer honestly. "Well," she said, "I haven't read the whole book, But from what I heard, it sounds like the character had no other choice. Sometimes we have to make difficult decisions, even if we don't like them. David nodded. That's a really interesting perspective. Even without reading the book, you understood the situation well. Mia felt relieved. She had spoken in a real discussion, shared her opinion, and wasn't afraid to participate. As the weeks went by, Mia continued pushing herself. She joined more events, practiced speaking with friends, and even started listening to English podcasts daily to improve her comprehension. One day, she got an exciting email. It was from her university, offering students a chance to study abroad for 6 months in Canada. Mia had always dreamed of traveling, but she had never imagined studying in an English-speaking country. At first, she felt nervous. What if her English wasn't good enough? What if she struggled to keep up with classes? She called Jason. "Do you think I should apply?" she asked. Jason didn't hesitate. "Of course. This is the perfect opportunity for you. You've already proven that you can handle real conversations. This will help you improve even more." Mia thought about it. She remembered how scared she had been to order coffee. She remembered how nervous she had felt before joining the book club. And yet, she had succeeded every time. So, she applied. A few weeks later, she received the acceptance letter. She was going to Canada. When she arrived in Toronto, everything felt overwhelming at first. The city was huge, people spoke quickly, and she had to use English for everything. Finding her way around, asking for help, even grocery shopping. Her first challenge came when she had to register for classes. She walked into the university office where a staff member greeted her. "Hi there, how can I help you?" Mia took a deep breath. "Hi, I need to register for my courses. I'm an exchange student." "Great! Do you have your student ID?" Maya hesitated for a second, then said, "Oh, I think I left it in my room. Can I still register without it?" The woman smiled. "That's okay. Just bring it tomorrow. For now, let's get your schedule sorted." As they went through the process, Mia realized something. She wasn't struggling anymore. She was having a normal conversation, just like any other student. Over the next few months, she faced many new experiences. She made friends from different countries, attended lectures in English, and even gave a presentation in front of her class. At the end of the semester, her professor pulled her aside and said, "Mia, I just wanted to say that I've seen a huge improvement in your confidence. You've done a great job this term." Mia felt proud. She had gone from being too afraid to order coffee to giving presentations in English. When she returned home, she met up with Jason and told him everything. "You were right," she said. "The only way to get better is to keep putting yourself in real situations." Jason smiled. "I knew you could do it. And you know what? You're just getting started." Mia laughed. "I guess I am. The lesson here is simple. If you want to improve your English, you have to use it in real life. You have to speak, listen, and challenge yourself every day. It's okay to feel nervous. It's okay to make mistakes. What matters is that you keep going." Now, I want you to think, what's one situation where you can practice your English? Today, maybe it's ordering food in English, joining a conversation online, or even just speaking out loud to yourself. Whatever it is, take that step. Because every small effort, Mia's journey didn't stop when she returned home. In fact, it was just the beginning. After spending 6 months in Canada, she had grown more confident in speaking English. She had learned to navigate conversations with ease, ask questions when she didn't understand something, and most importantly, she had developed the courage to speak without fear of making mistakes. But there was still one challenge she hadn't faced yet: speaking English at work. Mia worked for a multinational company that often had meetings with international clients. Most of the time, these meetings were conducted in English. Since she was still new to the job, she usually stayed quiet, only listening. while her colleagues spoke. She was afraid of saying the wrong thing or not being able to express her ideas clearly. One day, her manager, Mr. Johnson, called her into his office. "Mia," he said, "we have a big meeting next week with a client from London. I want you to give a short presentation about our latest project." Mia felt her stomach drop. "Me? A presentation? In English?" Mr. Johnson nodded. "Yes. You've done great work on this project, and I believe you're ready." Mia wanted to say no. She wanted to tell him that someone else should do it, but then she remembered how she had felt before ordering coffee in English. She remembered the fear before joining the book club, the hesitation before applying to study abroad. Each time she had been scared, but each time she had pushed through. So, she took a deep breath and said, "Okay, I'll do it." That night, she stayed up late practicing. She wrote down her main points, recorded herself speaking, and even stood in front of the mirror, pretending she was already in the meeting. She focused on pronouncing her words clearly and using simple, direct sentences. Finally, the day of the meeting arrived. Mia walked into the conference room, her heart racing. The client from London, Mr. Carter, sat at the table, smiling politely. Her colleagues were there too, waiting for her presentation. She took a deep breath and began. "Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk about our latest project and how it will benefit our clients." As she spoke, she focused on keeping her voice steady. At first, she was nervous, but then something amazing happened. She realized that the client was listening carefully, nodding in agreement. Her colleagues were engaged. She wasn't just reading from notes. She was communicating. When she finished, Mr. Carter smiled. "That was an excellent presentation, Mia. Very clear and well-structured. I appreciate the way you explained everything." Mia couldn't believe it. She had done it. She had spoken English in a professional setting, and she had done it well. After the meeting, Mr. Johnson patted her on the back. "I knew you could do it," he said. "From now on, I'd like you to join more of these meetings." Mia felt a rush of pride. A few months ago, she had been afraid to order coffee in English. Now, she was giving presentations to international clients. From that moment on, she decided to challenge herself even more. She started volunteering as a tour guide for foreign visitors in her city. At first, she only gave simple directions, but soon she was leading entire groups, explaining historical sites, answering questions, and even sharing funny stories. One day, a tourist from Australia asked her, "How did you learn English so well?" Mia laughed. "Honestly, by putting myself in situations where I had no choice but to speak. I was scared at first, but I realized that the only way to improve is to actually use the language." The tourist nodded. "That's the best way to learn." "You sound great." Hearing that made Mia feel even more confident. But her biggest challenge came when she was invited to an international business conference in Singapore. Her company had selected her to represent them at a networking event where professionals from all over the world would be speaking English. At first, she thought, what if I don't understand someone's accent? What if I can't keep up with the conversations? But then she reminded herself. She had faced challenges before. She could do this too. When she arrived at the conference, she took a deep breath and walked into the room full of people speaking English. A woman from Germany smiled at her. "Hi, I'm Anna. Nice to meet you." Mia smiled back. "Hi, I'm Mia. Nice to meet you too," Anna asked. "What do you do?" Mia hesitated for just a second, but then confidently said, "I work in project management for a tech company. We develop software solutions for businesses." Anna nodded. "That sounds interesting. I work in the same industry. What kind of projects are you working on right now?" And just like that, Mia was in a real conversation, networking in English. By the end of the event, she had exchanged business cards with professionals from 5 different countries. She had held long conversations, asked questions, and even shared her own opinions. That night, as she looked at the stack of business cards in her hand, she realized something. She was no longer afraid. She wasn't just learning English anymore. She was using it. She called Jason to tell him about her experience. "You won't believe it," she said. "I just spent the whole day networking in English." Jason laughed. "I told you, you've come so far. And the best part, this is just the beginning," Mia smiled. He was right. And now, let me ask you, what is one situation where you can challenge yourself to use English today? Maybe it's speaking with a friend, joining an online conversation, or even just ordering food in English. Whatever it is, take that step, because every time you push yourself a little further, you're not just learning English, you're living it. Mia sat in her hotel room after the business conference in Singapore, holding a cup of tea and thinking about everything that had happened in the last few months. She had gone from being nervous about speaking English to confidently networking with professionals from around the world. But the journey wasn't over yet. She wanted to push herself even further. The next morning, she had breakfast at the hotel's buffet. As she picked up a plate of fruit, a man next to her smiled and said, "Good morning. The mangoes here are amazing, aren't they?" Mia smiled back. "Yes, they are. The food here is incredible." The man introduced himself. "I'm Daniel from Canada. Are you here for the business conference too?" Mia nodded. "Yes, I am. I work in project management for a tech company." Daniel's eyes lit up. "Oh, that's interesting. I work in tech too. What kind of projects are you involved in?" And just like that, another conversation had begun. They spent the next 20 minutes talking about their work, sharing experiences, and discussing different business strategies. At one point, Mia realized something. She wasn't thinking about her English anymore. She was just speaking naturally, like she would in her own language. Later that day, Mia decided to explore the city. She took a taxi to Marina Bay and started walking around, enjoying the beautiful skyline. As she was taking pictures, she heard a group of tourists speaking English. They seemed lost, looking at a map and discussing directions. Mia hesitated for a moment. Should she offer to help? She took a deep breath and walked over. "Hi, are you looking for something?" One of the tourists, a woman from France, smiled with relief. "Yes, we're trying to find the gardens by the bay. Do you know how to get there?" Mia nodded. "Yes, you just need to walk straight for about 10 minutes, and you'll see the entrance on your right." The woman looked impressed. "Your English is so good. Are you from here?" Mia laughed. "No, I'm visiting too, but I've been practicing my English a lot lately." The woman smiled. "Well, it's working. Thanks you so much for your help." Mia walked away feeling proud. A year ago, she would have been too shy to speak up. Now, she was helping others and having conversations without fear. That evening, she decided to challenge herself again. She walked into a local cafe and saw a sign that said English Conversation Meetup. All levels. Welcome. Curious, she stepped inside and saw a group of people sitting around a table chatting in English. A woman waved at her. "Hi, are you here for the conversation meetup?" Mia hesitated for just a second, then smiled. "Yes, can I join?" "Of course. I'm Sarah from Australia. What's your name?" "I'm Mia from Thailand." Sarah grinned. "Nice to meet you. We're just talking about travel experiences. Do you have a favorite place you visited?" Mia thought for a moment. "Well, I studied in Canada for 6 months and it was amazing. I got to experience snow for the first time, and I even joined a book club to practice my English." Another person in the group, a man from Japan, said, "Wow, that's brave. I always feel nervous speaking English in groups." Mia nodded. "I used to feel the same way, but I realized that the more I practice, the more confident I become." They continued talking for over an hour, sharing stories, laughing, and learning from each other. By the end of the meetup, Mia had made new friends from 5 different countries. Before she left, Sarah said, "You should come back tomorrow. We're having another meetup." Mia smiled. "I'd love to." When she returned to her hotel that night, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had pushed herself to try new things, meet new people, and use English in real situations. But her biggest challenge was yet to come. A week later, back in her home country, Mia received an email from her company. They wanted her to represent them at an international tech summit in London. She would have to give a speech in front of hundreds of people. Her first reaction was panic. A casual conversation was one thing, but a formal speech? That was a completely different challenge. She called Jason for advice. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "A presentation in a small meeting is one thing, but speaking in front of a big audience?" Jason laughed. "Mia, do you remember when you were afraid to order coffee in English? And now you're leading meetings, networking, and helping strangers. You've come so far. This is just the next step." Mia took a deep breath. He was right. She had faced challenges before, and she had overcome them. For the next 2 weeks, she prepared her speech. She wrote down key points, recorded herself, and practiced in front of the mirror. She even joined an online speaking club to get feedback. Finally, the day arrived. She stood backstage, her heart pounding as she heard the host announce her name. She walked onto the stage, took a deep breath, and began. "Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mia, and today I'm excited to share my journey with you." As she spoke, she remembered everything she had learned. She made eye contact with the audience, used clear and simple language, and paused when needed. When she finished, there was a moment of silence, then loud applause. After the event, people came up to her to congratulate her. One woman said, "Your story was so inspiring. I've been afraid to speak English, but after hearing you, I feel like I should just go for it." Mia smiled. That was exactly how she had felt a year ago, and now she was the one inspiring others. That night, she wrote in her journal, "1 year ago, I was afraid to speak English. Today, I gave a speech in front of hundreds of people." Learning a language is not about being perfect. It's about having the courage to use it. And now, let me ask you, what is your next step? Maybe it's ordering food in English, joining a conversation group, or speaking up in a meeting. Whatever it is, take that step today. Because every time you push yourself, you get closer to fluency. Mia's journey didn't stop there. After returning from London, she felt a surge of energy. The speech had been a turning point, and now she was determined to keep improving. But life had a way of testing her resolve. A few weeks later, her manager called her into the office. "Mia, we need someone to present our team's latest project at a global conference. Would you be interested?" She paused. Was she ready for this? Another presentation? A bigger audience? She had just come back from London, but this time it felt different. This time, it wasn't just about speaking. This was about representing her team and her company. Mia thought about all the progress she had made. She had gone from struggling with basic conversations to speaking at international events. She had built relationships with people from all over the world. "Why not take the next step? I'm in," she said confidently. Her manager smiled. "I knew you would be. The presentation is in 3 weeks. We'll need you to prepare thoroughly." Mia spent the next few days reviewing the project details, practicing her speech, and rehearsing in front of the mirror. But this time, she didn't just focus on the words. She wanted to connect with the audience, make them feel something. One evening, after a long day of preparation, Mia went to a nearby cafe to relax. As she sat down, sipping her coffee, she overheard a conversation between 2 people. They were speaking in English, and she couldn't help but listen in. One of the speakers, a woman with a thick British accent, was talking about the importance of storytelling in business. It's not just about the data, it's about connecting with your audience, making them feel the impact of your words, she said passionately. Mia leaned in, intrigued. This was exactly what she had been missing in her presentations. She had always focused on the facts, the statistics, the graphs. But what if she could tell a story that would make her audience feel something? After the conversation ended, Mia approached the woman. "Excuse me, I couldn't help but overhear. I'm preparing for a presentation, and I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on storytelling." The woman smiled. "Of course, I'd be happy to share. Storytelling is one of the most powerful tools in communication. It helps make your message memorable and relatable. You want to take your audience on a journey with you." Mia nodded eagerly, taking notes. The woman continued. "When you present, think about the emotions you want to evoke. What do you want your audience to feel, and how can you tie your message into a story that resonates with them?" That conversation stayed with Mia for the next few weeks. She went home and started to rethink her presentation. What if she could turn the project into a story? She could talk about the challenges her team faced, the lessons they learned, and the impact their work would have on the future. On the day of the presentation, Mia felt nervous. This was different. This wasn't just about speaking English. It was about telling a story, making an impact. As she stood backstage, her heart raced. When her name was called, she walked confidently to the stage. She took a deep breath, looked out at the audience, and began. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Mia, and I'm here to tell you the story of our team's journey. It all began with a problem that seemed impossible to solve." As Mia spoke, she noticed something she hadn't before. The audience was listening. They were nodding, leaning in, and even smiling. She wasn't just giving facts and figures, she was taking them on a journey. By the end of her presentation, Mia felt something she had never felt before. Pride. She had done it. She had told a story that connected with her audience, and she had done it in English. After the event, people came up to her praising her speech. One woman said, "I could feel the passion in your words. You made me want to be a part of your team's journey." Mia smiled, feeling a rush of gratitude. She had taken a risk, but it had paid off. She had stepped out of her comfort zone and found a new way to communicate, one that went beyond language. In the weeks that followed, Mia continued to practice storytelling. She started incorporating more personal anecdotes into her daily conversations, learning how to connect with people on a deeper level. One evening, she met up with her old friend, David. They hadn't seen each other in months, and they had a lot to catch up on. David was surprised by how much Mia had grown. "You've changed," he said, raising an eyebrow. "You speak more confidently now, like you're telling a story. You're not just talking about the facts." Mia grinned. "That's exactly what I've been working on. I've learned that it's not just about speaking English correctly, it's about making people feel something when you speak." David laughed. "I can tell. It's like you're not just communicating with words. You're telling a story that sticks with people." As they continued to talk, Mia realized how far she had come. From the nervous traveler who could barely order food in English to the confident speaker who was telling stories at international events, she had transformed. But Mia knew the journey wasn't over. There were still new challenges ahead, new conversations, new presentations, and new opportunities. She would continue to push herself, to grow, and to learn. And so she asked herself, as she always did, what's next? Maybe it was telling her story to an even bigger audience, or maybe it was helping someone else who was struggling the way she once had. Whatever it was, Mia was ready. Mia didn't stop there. Even though she had made so much progress, she knew there was always room for improvement. She had learned to communicate her message effectively, but now she was thinking about ways to connect even more deeply with people. She remembered something the woman at the cafe had said about evoking emotions. What if she could make people feel something? Not just through stories, but also through how she spoke. She started paying attention to her tone, pitch, and pace. She noticed that when she spoke too quickly, people seemed less engaged. But when she slowed down, took pauses, and varied her tone, she had their full attention. It was a game changer. This wasn't just about the words. It was about how she said them. One evening, Mia sat down with her notebook and wrote down a list of techniques she wanted to try. She wrote, "Slow down when I'm nervous, use pauses for effect, and speak with passion." These were small but powerful changes she could make to improve her speaking skills even more. She was starting to see English not just as a tool for communication, but as a way to connect with people emotionally. Then came the day of another big challenge. Mia had been invited to speak at a conference on leadership, and this time the stakes were higher. The audience wasn't just made up of colleagues, it was a group of senior leaders from various industries, people who had years of experience, people who knew exactly what they were talking about. Mia had the perfect story in mind for her presentation, but she also knew this would be her toughest test yet. As the day of the conference drew closer, Mia spent hours refining her speech. She practiced in front of a mirror, recorded herself, and listened to the playback. She knew she could nail the story, but the challenge was how to make it relatable to such a diverse audience. How could she ensure that everyone in the room would connect with her? A few days before the event, Mia went for a walk to clear her head. She found herself reflecting on the advice her mentor, Emily, had given her months ago. "Mia, it's important to make your audience feel like they are part of your journey. Share your struggles, your challenges, and your growth. People connect with people, not with perfect stories." That was it. The key to her success wasn't perfection. It was honesty. She had to share not just the successes, but the tough moments, the failures, the doubts, the fear. People didn't want to hear about a flawless journey. They wanted to hear about how someone overcame obstacles, how someone kept pushing forward. Despite the setbacks, with this new perspective, Mia felt ready. When the day of the conference arrived, she stood backstage, nervous but determined. She had prepared for this moment, and now she was going to make it count. She looked at her notes one last time and took a deep breath. Her name was called, and she walked confidently to the stage, but this time there was something different. She wasn't just thinking about her speech, she was thinking about her audience. She wanted to speak from her heart. As she began her presentation, Mia started with a personal story. "A few years ago, I was in a place where I wasn't sure if I could succeed. I had just moved to a new city, starting a new job. I was overwhelmed by the expectations and the pressure to perform. There were times when I questioned myself, wondering if I was good enough. I remember one night sitting at my desk, thinking I might not make it. But then something changed." She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in. The audience was listening intently, and Mia could feel the connection. She wasn't just sharing her story, she was inviting them into it. She continued, "What changed was my mindset. I realized that the only way to grow was to step outside my comfort zone. So I took risks, I failed, and then I failed again. But with each failure, I learned. I kept going, and I kept improving." As she spoke, Mia saw nodding heads in the crowd. She could feel their empathy. They weren't just listening. They were feeling the struggles she had gone through. It wasn't about her perfect achievements. It was about her journey, her growth, and the vulnerability she had shared. She shared more about the obstacles she had faced at work and how she had learned to overcome them. "There were times when I felt defeated, but I kept pushing through. And I want to remind you that it's okay to fail. It's okay to struggle, because those moments shape you, and they make you stronger." Mia could see that her words were resonating with her audience. They were no longer just hearing a presentation. They were hearing a real story. A story of growth, of overcoming adversity, of taking... When she finished her speech, the applause was overwhelming. People came up to her, shaking her hand, telling her how much they had been inspired. One man even said, "I've been in this industry for over 20 years, and your story just reminded me why I love what I do. Thank you for sharing that." Mia was humbled by the response. She had shared not just her achievements, but her struggles too, and it had made all the difference. It wasn't just about speaking English perfectly. It was about sharing something real, something that people could connect with. As the event came to an end, Mia felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had come so far from where she had started. A few years ago, she had struggled with basic conversations. Now, she was standing in front of a room full of professionals, sharing her story in English and making a real impact. But Mia knew that the journey didn't end here. She was already thinking about the next step. There would always be new challenges, new opportunities to grow. She was ready for whatever came next. After all, the most important part of the journey was not the destination. It was the growth that happened along the way. And so, Mia kept going. She kept learning, practicing, and growing. Every new conversation, every new presentation was an opportunity to get better. There was always something to improve, and Mia was determined to continue pushing herself. After the conference, Mia felt a sense of accomplishment that she hadn't experienced before. However, as she sat down in her hotel room that night, she couldn't help but reflect on the road ahead. Yes, she had spoken in front of a large audience. And yes, her story had resonated with people. But there was still more to learn, more to experience. She couldn't afford to rest on her laurels. Her goal was to keep improving. She remembered how nervous she had felt in the beginning, not just because she was speaking English, but because she was speaking in front of people who had more experience, more knowledge. But now, Mia had a new perspective. She understood that everyone, no matter how experienced they were, had their own set of insecurities. She also realized that the best way to connect with others was to acknowledge the shared human experience. Everyone faces doubts, fears, and challenges. As she sat by the window, looking out at the city lights, Mia thought about how she could help others who were struggling with the same things she had. She'd spent so much of her life focusing on grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. But the true key to effective communication wasn't about perfection. It was about confidence, authenticity, and empathy. It was time for Mia to turn the focus outward. She wanted to help others become the best communicators they could be, to show them that speaking a language wasn't just about speaking perfectly. It was about connecting. It was about building relationships, expressing ideas, and feeling heard. She could still improve, yes, but it wasn't just about her anymore. It was about others too. A few weeks later, Mia decided to take the next step in her journey. She started offering workshops for people who were learning English. The workshops weren't about perfect grammar or vocabulary. They were about real life, communication skills. She called them Communicating with Confidence. The first session was nerve-wracking. Mia was nervous not because she was speaking English, but because she was now responsible for teaching others. She had been the student for so long. Now, she was the teacher. What if she wasn't good enough? What if they didn't understand her? But as the session began and Mia started to share her own experiences, she saw a shift in her perspective. She realized that this wasn't about her being perfect. It was about making her learners feel comfortable. She shared her own struggles with speaking English, how she had once been afraid to speak in front of others, how she had worried about making mistakes, and how those fears had almost held her back. Mia could see the relief in her students' eyes as they realized they weren't the only ones feeling this way. One student, a young woman named Sarah, raised her hand and shared, "I always feel like I'm not saying things right. I'm scared to speak because I might make mistakes. Mia smiled and nodded. "I've been there," she said. "When I first started speaking English, I was terrified. But you know what? I made a lot of mistakes. And that's okay. In fact, making mistakes is one of the best ways to learn." Mia encouraged Sarah and the others to embrace mistakes, to see them as stepping stones rather than setbacks. She shared how, at the beginning of her journey, she had focused too much on perfection and not enough on communication. It wasn't the mistakes that mattered. It was the message. The goal isn't to speak perfectly, it's to speak with clarity and confidence, and to connect with others. The students seemed to relax after hearing this. They started speaking more freely, engaging in conversations without worrying too much about making mistakes. Mia guided them through exercises where they shared personal stories, focusing on expressing ideas clearly instead of worrying about grammar. She encouraged them to share their opinions, to voice their thoughts without fear. In one exercise, Mia asked everyone to tell a short story about a time they had overcome a challenge. As she listened to their stories, Mia noticed something incredible. The more they spoke, the more their confidence grew. And as their confidence grew, their speaking improved naturally. One of the students, a man named Daniel, had struggled with speaking English for years. He told a story about how he had once been afraid to ask for help at work. He had always feared his English wasn't good enough, but one day he decided to take a chance and ask a colleague for assistance. To his surprise, his colleague was more than happy to help, and Daniel realized that his fear had been holding him back for so long. As Daniel spoke, Mia noticed his voice becoming stronger, his sentences more fluid. He was no longer focusing on the perfect word or grammar, he was focused on sharing his experience. "This is what I've learned," Daniel said. "It's not about being perfect. It's about just doing it, speaking up, and getting better each time." Mia couldn't help but smile. It was exactly what she had wanted to teach them. The goal wasn't perfection, it was progress. Every conversation, every story, every mistake was a step forward. After the workshop, Mia received a message from Sarah. "I just wanted to say thank you. I'm already feeling more confident about speaking English. I'm not as scared to make mistakes anymore." Mia felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had helped someone else see that speaking English wasn't about being flawless, it was about making connections. It wasn't about impressing others with perfect grammar, it was about sharing your voice and your ideas with the world. Mia's workshops continued to grow, and more people came to her for advice. She became known not only for her English speaking skills, but also for her ability to help others communicate confidently. She realized that by helping others improve their English, she was also continuing to improve herself. She was learning from her students just as much as they were learning from her. Her own journey of self-improvement had come full circle. She had gone from being a shy, unsure speaker to someone who not only communicated with confidence, but helped others do the same. And through this process, Mia discovered the true power of language, not in perfection, but in connection. Every day, Mia continued to learn and grow. Whether it was through teaching others, speaking at conferences, or simply having conversations, she knew that her journey as a communicator was far from over. It wasn't about the end goal, it was about the journey itself. As Mia continued to teach her workshops, she began to recognize that her own growth was happening in ways she hadn't expected. One morning, while reflecting on her journey, Mia realized that teaching wasn't just about sharing knowledge. It was about inspiring others to believe in themselves. Every time one of her students stepped up to speak, Mia could see the difference. The hesitation slowly faded, replaced by the growing confidence to express their ideas, their emotions, and their stories. One of Mia's students, Emily, had been particularly shy. She would often avoid speaking in class, even when it was her turn. Emily was an advanced English learner, but she had always struggled with self-doubt. She was convinced that people would judge her if she made even the smallest mistake. Mia noticed Emily's hesitation one afternoon and decided to approach her after class. "Emily, I see how hard you're working, but I also see how much you're holding back. What's going on?" Mia asked gently. Emily hesitated for a moment before responding, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm afraid of saying something wrong. I feel like people will think I'm not good enough, even though I know a lot." Mia smiled and nodded, remembering how she felt during her own struggles. "I completely understand. I used to feel the same way. But let me tell you something important. Making mistakes is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of growth. You can't improve unless you step out of your comfort zone and take risks. If you're afraid of making mistakes, you'll never grow as much as you could." Emily looked uncertain, but Mia could see the wheels turning. In her mind, "I want to help you see that your voice matters. No matter how perfect or imperfect your English is, it's the message you're sharing that counts. Your voice is important, Emily." Mia encouraged Emily to participate more in class, focusing on communication instead of perfection. Over the next few weeks, Emily started speaking up more. It wasn't always perfect, and she still stumbled from time to time, but with each session, she grew more confident. Slowly but surely, her fear of making mistakes began to fade, replaced by a sense of pride in her progress. One day, during an exercise where students shared a challenging experience they had faced, Emily stood up to speak. Her hands were shaking slightly, and her voice was still a bit unsure, but there was a spark in her eyes. She spoke about her journey of overcoming her fear of public speaking, explaining how it had affected her life, both professionally and personally. "I used to avoid speaking in meetings," Emily began. "I was always afraid of what people would think if I made a mistake. But after taking Mia's workshops, I realized that it's okay to be imperfect. I don't need to be perfect to be heard." The entire class listened attentively. There was no judgment, only support. Mia saw how Emily's story connected with the others. It wasn't just about speaking English. It was about showing vulnerability and strength. Emily had faced her fear and found the courage to share her truth with others. Later that day, after class, Emily came up to Mia, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me. I never thought I'd be able to speak like this." Mia smiled warmly. "You did all the hard work. You took the first step, and now look at how far you've come. This is just the beginning, Emily." Over time, Mia's workshops became a space not only for learning English, but also for personal growth. Her students weren't just improving their language skills. They were gaining confidence in themselves. Mia saw how each person transformed in their own way, whether they were speaking up in a meeting for the first time, participating in a social event, or sharing their personal stories without fear. Mia's own speaking ability continued to improve as well. The more she helped her students, the more she learned from them. Every question they asked, every concern they raised, forced her to think critically about her own communication style. She didn't just teach them English. She also learned valuable lessons from them about patience, empathy, and resilience. One day, Mia had the chance to meet a well-known author, Henry Blake, who was in town for a speaking event. Henry was known for his ability to captivate audiences with his storytelling and powerful speeches. Mia was nervous, but she knew it was a great opportunity to learn from someone with so much experience. After the event, Mia approached Henry with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She introduced herself and mentioned how she had been teaching English for a while. To her surprise, Henry was extremely approachable and eager to chat. "So, you teach English?" Henry asked. "That's wonderful. What's the hardest part about teaching?" Mia thought for a moment before responding. The hardest part is helping my students overcome their fear of making mistakes. Many of them are afraid to speak, even though they know the language well. It's the fear of judgment that holds them back." Henry nodded thoughtfully. "I can relate. I've spent my whole life speaking in front of audiences, but even I still feel that fear before stepping onto a stage. The key is not to focus on being flawless, but on connecting with your audience. When you focus on your message, not on your mistakes, you free yourself from that fear." Mia felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had always known this intellectually, but hearing it from someone like Henry made it feel more real. "That's exactly what I try to teach my students. It's not about the perfect sentence. It's about sharing your message clearly and with confidence." Henry smiled. "Exactly. Keep doing what you're doing, Mia. You're teaching them something far more valuable than just grammar and vocabulary. You're teaching them the power of connection." Mia left the conversation feeling inspired and more confident in her teaching than ever. She realized that the more she focused on helping her students connect with others, the more she was helping them become not just better English speakers, but better communicators overall. It wasn't just about teaching English anymore. It was about teaching life skills. She understood now that language was a tool for connecting, for building relationships, and for understanding one another. And the real key to effective communication was not just about how well you spoke, but about how well you listened and empathized. As Mia continued her work, she expanded her workshops to include more real-life scenarios, job interviews, casual conversations, even giving presentations. She wanted her students to feel ready for any situation, not just the classroom. And through all of this, Mia found that the more she helped others, the more she helped herself. She wasn't just teaching language skills. She was learning new ways to connect, to listen, and to communicate. Every interaction was a lesson, and every mistake was an opportunity to improve. As Mia continued her journey, she realized that her work had become more than just teaching English. It had transformed into a life-changing experience for both her students and herself. She had created a space where people could learn not just to speak a language, but to express themselves without fear. By focusing on communication over perfection, she was helping others build the confidence they needed to navigate the world more comfortably. Emily, once so hesitant, had become a role model in the class. Her story of overcoming self-doubt inspired many others to step up and take risks, even if it meant making mistakes along the way. The class as a whole had shifted from a group of learners to a community of people supporting each other through their shared struggles and victories. Mia had found a new sense of purpose. Every time one of her students spoke with confidence, it reminded her of why she started teaching in the first place. It wasn't just about language. It was about helping people find their voice, share their stories, and connect with others. Her workshops grew, and more students joined, eager to improve their speaking skills and gain the confidence to take on new challenges. Mia was proud of the community she had built, where mistakes were not feared, but embraced as part of the learning process. She knew she had found her calling, and every day she felt more fulfilled as she helped her students grow. Mia's journey was a testament to the power of communication and the importance of overcoming fear. By embracing mistakes and focusing on connection, she had not only transformed her students' lives, but her own as well. And so, Mia's story continues, one conversation at a time, reminding us all that the path to fluency isn't about perfection, it's about connection, courage, and the willingness to speak up.